Okay, welcome everyone. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to Artistic Responses to Intelligent Machines, a seminar presented by the Digital Humanities Research Hub at the School of Advanced Study, University of London. It's held in partnership with Produced Moon and is supported by the John Coffin Memorial Trust. My name is Michael Donne, and I'm the manager here at the Hub. The Digital Humanities Research Hub supports researchers and practitioners working at the intersection of the digital and arts, humanities, and cultural heritage, both across the UK and around the world. Our unique role in the research landscape allows us to advocate for a more critical approach to digital technologies, both within and outside of the academy. An important element of that work is convening conversations like today's seminar that address key conversations and questions in the field. Today's event will take place in two parts. The first will be a short series of presentations from our panelists. We'll then take a brief break and return for discussion with questions both from our moderators and from you, the audience. Before we get started, there are just a few bits of housekeeping to go through. First, we ask that you keep your microphone muted and your camera turned off during today's seminar. If you want to ask a question, we ask that you use the chat function, and you're welcome to add questions throughout the event. We'll have someone moderating the chat. Second, we will be recording today's seminar. And again, we ask that you keep your camera off and microphone muted so that you don't appear in the recording. If you have any technical difficulties, please feel free to message me in the chat or email us at digitalhumanities@sas.ac.uk, and we'll do our best to assist you. Captions are available today by clicking the Show Captions button at the bottom of your screen. There will also be BSL interpretation. If you'd like to see Lane, our interpreter, you can pin her video to keep it in view. And we'll ask that all of our speakers today not speak too quickly, just so she can keep up. Finally, a word about how today's Q&A will run. The Digital Humanities Research Hub seeks to further an inclusive environment that's welcoming to those who are new to the field and are open to different approaches and perspectives. Both speakers and attendees at our events contribute to that spirit of inclusivity. So questions should be asked with respect and generosity in a way that promotes dialogue rather than shutting it down. And with that, let's jump into today's seminar. It's my pleasure to introduce Mel and Leo from Produced Moon, who will be moderating today's discussion, and I'll hand it over to them to begin.
Hello. Hi, everyone. I'm Leo. My pronouns are she, her. To give a quick visual description, I'm a white woman in my early 30s. I've got a green jumper on and a beautifully coordinated green scrunchie, which I hope everyone is appreciating. And I've got a sort of cropped blonde bob that's held up by a scrunchie on top of my head.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mel from Produced Moon. I'm also a white woman in my early 30s. I've got just longer than shoulder length brown hair. I'm wearing a dark jumper with a big collar and some silver hoop earrings.
We were really excited to be asked by Michael and the team to co-program this event. So we started working with DHRH a while ago, actually, when we were doing a residency with them. And that kind of links to how we're facilitating this chat. So we were doing a project called Glory Mold, which is a kind of speculative future where we imagine what would happen to AI if at some point in its development, it fused with a slime mold. And slime molds are these amazing sort of, almost like a fungus, but not a fungus. They're sort of monocellular, but they think in lots of different ways. The multiplicity is at the heart of what they do. They don't have a nervous system, and yet they can remember things. So we don't really know how they work, but we do know that they're amazing problem solvers. And importantly, they have an incredibly intimate relationship to the natural world. So I guess the question that we have when we come as artists to AI is, what if AI was developing in a way that was multiplicitous and in this very different dialogue to the natural world than what we currently have? So we started this project at DHRH, and we've continued our interest in AI since then. And Mel's going to talk a little bit about who we are as a company.
So yeah, as Leo says, this kind of glory mold is the character at the center of this project. And we take this character and kind of apply this perspective to lots of different contexts that we work in. When we were in residence in DHRH, we kind of brought Glory Mold in residence with us as a way of kind of thinking about the work going on at the hub. And we similarly use the character to think about the work with kind of the developing field of artificial intelligence. And we mostly do that through an AI chatbot that we've developed that's kind of infused with these characters' values and perspectives, which will come into the event a little bit later. We are, as Produced Moon, a creative XR theatre lab. And what that means is that our work is constantly engaged with emerging technologies of all different types and the ways that technologies prompt the imagination of new realities and can take us as audiences to new realities. But really, we are curious artists. We are not AI experts. We are people who are intrigued, but also quite frightened by the kind of developing artificial intelligence world around us. And I think that kind of maybe discomfort, that fear, that uneasiness is something that really guides all parts of our practice and is definitely something that really sits in the mingling and midst of the project Glory Mold. And so today we are bringing our kind of curiosity to this event, but what we're bringing that curiosity to is 3 speakers from fields of art and academia who really have kind of are pushing and interrogating and questioning AI in lots of different ways. And we're going to be asking them some questions and kind of moderating the discussion. So I'm going to invite those speakers to just introduce themselves briefly. So I'm just going to invite Jake to introduce themselves.
Hello. Thanks so much for having me. I'm Jake Elwes. I'm a media artist, I guess like a sort of critically engaged conceptual artist who has been working with artificial intelligence and machine learning technologies, I guess for coming up to 10 years now. So kind of really since the start of this technology became popularized, the sort of very first generative AI that we saw about 10 years ago. Um, I am a white queer man. I'm sitting in my bedroom with a pink curved wall behind me, and a plant, a rubber plant, and I'm wearing a purple neckerchief and a pink and white striped t-shirt. And I've got long curly hair and a moustache. I think that's probably enough visual description and conceptual description from me.
Thanks, Jake. Sanjay?
Hi everyone, I'm Sanjay Sharma. Just describe myself briefly. Dark, slightly greying, or maybe more greying hair. South Asian descent, so brown skinned. Wearing a sort of brownish shirt with a black t-shirt underneath. I've got a blurred black background, so I won't say anything more about that. And I'm based at the University of Warwick in the Centre for Interdisciplinary Methodologies. I've been exploring entanglement between the social and the technological, I guess, for a decade, with a particular interest in what happens to racism and racialization in that entanglement. And I've got particular interest in AI over the last few years because partly it's kind of unavoidable, and it's a nascent area of research around race and AI. So I think it's an interesting area to explore. Thanks.
Thank you, Sanjay. Alice?
Hi everyone, I'm Alice Helliwell. So I'm an assistant professor of philosophy at Northeastern University London, and I research philosophical implications of AI art and computational creativity, kind of crossing aesthetics, philosophy of creativity and ethics. Brief visual description, I'm a white woman with sort of dark wavy hair. I wear big glasses and I'm wearing a black top, and my background's also blurred, so there's nothing I want you to think of back there. Yeah, I think that's probably enough. Thanks.
Good, thank you all so much. So we're going to invite all these wonderful people to do a little 5-minute micro talk on an aspect of their practice or research interest. So Jake, do you want to start us off?
Let me share with you. Okay, so can everyone see that okay? Like I said, I'm Jake, and I guess So I've been playing with these technologies since, in a way, their infancy. And I come from a traditional fine art background, so not from a computer science background. But ever since I was a little kid, I've been hacking with technology, whether that be with digital photography, leading into kind of game design and 3D rendering, and then eventually writing my own code. And I think around the time that I was at the Slade, which is quite a traditional art school in London at UCL, I became fascinated by this new emerging field of machine learning, and especially looking at neural networks and deep learning. And what that could mean for me as an artist, because at the time it was so conceptual that it didn't really seem to apply to me as a visual artist. But it felt to me like it was a really exciting moment in time where we were seeing a lot of philosophical thought experiments kind of come into fruition, where suddenly we were actually exploring a lot of these ideas of what is creativity, what is consciousness, or sort of ethical questions, meta-ethical questions, and metaphysical questions actually kind of being enacted for real using these algorithms. Now, I'm going to speak briefly about a couple of my older projects and then a couple of AI theory ideas. In this 5 minutes, it's going to be a lot to squeeze in. I'm already actually running out. Okay, I better move on quickly. So I'm going to show you a quick snippet of an old piece called Dada Data. And this is, in a way, one of my interests is pivoting the focus away from artificial consciousness, artificial intelligence, and actually thinking about who is creating these systems and who are they creating them for and to serve. So this is a piece from 2016 where I turned an AI around the people who build them.
25 million, 1 billion, 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 2 billion, 2, 7 billion, 4 billion, 185,
95, 10, tens of billions, hundreds of billions, tens of billions, hundreds of billions, 1, 2, 4, 80,000, 95, 220,000, 1.
5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 4, 5, 3, 5, 5, 5, 6, 5, 5, 5, 4, 5, 4.
All right, I'll stop it there, but you can watch more on my website. As you can imagine, yeah, all these white men who were the most influential people in technology at the time, speaking in numbers. Here's a couple of early projects. I actually rarely speak about these ones, but this is much more thinking about us, our physical traces and touch when interfacing with technology. So these images are the screen of my phone when I'm touching it. So the one on the right is Grinder. The one on the left is phone calls. So you get the grease off my beard. And we've got a sort of camera in the middle, just the thumb. Sort of thinking again, yeah, about this technology as a physical thing. So running these circuit boards that I was using as a child through kind of printing presses as an etching plate. Here I'm thinking about doom scrolling. So this is the doom scroll, the passing of time along the x-axis as I doom scroll, and these images get created. So this is literally kind of seeing a 3-hour performance of me doom scrolling until my phone ran out, and the sort of images that came out of that using a photographic technique that records the passing of time. Now, I probably don't have much time to talk about AI theory, but I do see part of my role as an artist is to demystify artificial intelligence. And I think one of my favorite things is actually to think about AI as a space, not so much about it's something that's going to replace us, our intelligence or our creativity. It's not in competition with us necessarily. It's more that it's a tool that we've built to augment our abilities. Like a car isn't a better runner than a human. A car is something that we've built to make us go faster. The problem is that these technologies have the ability to rewire our brains. And I guess it's, in a way, it's power structure. Who has access to these technologies? And you know, will it make us mutually unintelligible to each other, as we're seeing now with fake news and social media? So here is a latent space. It's about plotting data in a space. So here is the IKEA catalogued. It's plotted into a space. Here's language plotted into a space that we can explore. And this is kind of the basis of all AI. Now, with generative AI, we take a point in that latent space, and here's a point for sheep. So here is electric sheep being created by an AI. Early experiments. Here is, again, the Buddha trying to see itself being created, but the AI is failing to create the image of the Buddha. It's a reference to Namjoon Paik's famous piece. Here we've got a little warning. So this is early images of pornography, where I'm trying to reverse engineer Yahoo's algorithm for removing pornography and turn it into the most pornographic porn. You can see these kind of fleshy blobs, taking birds out into the mud, to have the kind of primitive mud with, you know, these real birds, the Brent geese behind, with the most cutting edge algorithm at the time, creating birds. Now, I'm pretty much out of time, I think, but I'm just going to very, very quickly speak about this idea of queering artificial intelligence. So here is a very normative facial recognition data set. These are all fake faces, deep fake faces. I injected 1,000 images of drag formers, and we go from these images, these points in latent space, to here. So the weights in this neural network have shifted. Then we can go on a journey through this space and see the resulting space. So this has kind of been my project for the last 5 years, is how do we then reclaim this deep fake technology? How can we, as a community of drag formers and queers, kind of create ethical deepfakes? How can we reclaim these oppressive tools and create something hopeful and beautiful? Can we think about a kind of hopeful digital utopia? Does an apocalypse have to be dystopic? Whose apocalypse? Can it actually be something that we create for ourselves, something joyful and hopeful, and a kind of, yeah, a queer utopia? Anyway, I'll probably stop there.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jake. That was such an exciting whistle stop through so many beautiful pieces of work. Lovely. Sanjay, you ready?
Yep, let me just do the sharing of the screen. Hopefully you can see a title slide. Yeah. Okay, cool. Okay, well, first of all, thanks again. It's great to be part of this event, and that was a great talk, Jake. I don't think mine's going to be so exciting in terms of a follow-up. Okay, so I mentioned that I'm a researcher at Warwick. I'm interested in the politics of socio-technical systems, such as so-called AI. And you can see I tried in my title of my talk as trying to phrase AI as equivalent to the art of cultural exploitation. So I'm interested in undoing the values embedded in contemporary AI systems, such as datafication, optimization, scale, and profit, and whether they can be reimagined from alternative values, such as equity and care. So on this basis, at the moment, I have a funded project which is exploring the possibility of more inclusive AI futures. And that's aiming to sort of recenter minoritized voices and reimagine AI from abolitionist perspectives. I'm happy to say more about this project in the Q&A. What I want to do briefly in the rest of my talk is to explore more broader issues at stake when thinking about AI and creativity. Now, I'd like to remind you, in the words of Kate Crawford, that AI is neither artificial nor intelligent. AI is a technosocial assemblage. It's part of wider ecosystems, largely driven by corporate actors. And also the question of intelligence should be situated in its kind of racialized history, because it's been a very contested term. But I'm not going to talk about that now. I see AI as essentially a big tech marketing term. It actually obscures more than it reveals. There's a kind of hype at the moment over AI, the battle between doomsters, we're all going to die, and the accelerationists, let's all become post-human. But the problem is this has been shifting our attention away from the current problems and harms of AI. Though the challenge is these new technologies can be deeply disruptive, and that makes them difficult to grasp how the effects are unfolding. We're always trying to play catch up. Now, take for example, the claim that generative AI democratizes creativity for all, claim made by many people, including lead researchers at DALL-E. But we know that these AI tools are doing far more than this. They're impacting on the livelihoods of creative practitioners. They're replacing authenticity, creativity, and skill with automation, mediocrity, and imitation. Now, we can debate that, but I just want to throw it out there. Furthermore, the AI stack, I'd argue, is built on neo-colonial practices of extraction and exploitation, which itself are based on the epistemological violence of the global north. And as Goethe highlights, generative AI tools are impacting most on minoritized artists. Now, it's an open secret that generative AI has been problematically built on indiscriminately harvesting data from a multitude of sources, and these invariably been without consent. And perhaps even more disturbingly, by default, these systems are riddled with harmful stereotypes and toxic content. And safety's kind of been like an afterthought. It's been implemented reactively and unevenly. Yeah, it's like building a rocket and then sending it off to the moon and thinking, oh, actually, we need heat shields. And this has impact in all sorts of unanticipated ways. So, for instance, on the left side of the slide, take, for instance, when the black user prompted Canva to generate a black woman with a hairstyle of Bantu knots, and the output was blocked because the term Bantu has a controversial history. Or when a black artist account was flagged to be suspended because they were prompting Midjourney to generate a slave ship for their art practice. You can kind of see there's inherent problems with AI, and the method is to try to fix them, report the problem. That doesn't really undo the implicit white normativity that has been the basis of AI so far. Now, I mentioned in my inclusive AI research project that I've been exploring reimagining AI from an abolitionist ethics. And as Angela Davis says, abolitionism isn't just simply destructive. It desires to radically build alternative and equitable futures for everyone. So to try to end on, it's worth highlighting that the number of artists of colour have been productively using or misusing AI. And I particularly like the work of Natrice Gaskins. They offer a perceptive response to the question, can AI make art? By saying no, but artists make art, or artists can make art by using AI. And they stress that this requires skill, accumulated knowledge, cultural experience to creatively use generative AI. It's not a kind of simple democratizing creativity. And alongside other artists, including Jake, which I didn't know he was going to talk about, but they've been interrogating the AI latent space for undoing hegemonic forms of representation. Now, if AI systems embody a colonizing worldview, is another AI possible? I think there's many different examples of this, but one recent initiative called Latimer appears to offer, which is on the right side of the slide, appears to offer an alternative, apparently more transparent generative AI trained with diverse knowledge and voices. Perhaps it's a step towards an abolitionist AI. Okay, I'll stop there. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much for that, Sanjay. Perfect. We're going to move on to Alice for our last micro talk.
Okay, thanks. Let me just share my screen. Does that look okay? Thumbs up. Lovely. Thank you. All right. So I'm Alice Helliwell, as I said before. I'm a philosopher, and I'm interested in these questions around AI art and creativity. And one question I've been particularly interested in is this one. So is there an aesthetics of AI art? And by this, I mean, is there some aesthetic qualities which may be common or even unique to AI works or works made using AI? So when we look at AI works, here are some examples of artists using AI to make artworks. There's one thing that often gets raised and kind of comes to mind, and that is the weird. So these kinds of sort of blobby, amorphous, sort of mixed up features in images is often highlighted. And we see this in reporting around AI art as well. So here are some examples of articles around AI art. We see these phrases such as the weird and wonderful world of AI art, weird creations, wacky weird art, etc., etc. We've even got a blog here by the computer scientist Janelle Shane talking about AI weirdness in general. So perhaps weirdness is a key thing in the aesthetics of AI works. And if we think that this is plausible, then we could question why AI images are weird. Well, let's take a look at some examples to sort of interrogate this a bit further. So here are some examples of outputs from Stable Diffusion using the prompt hand. So this is a text-to-image generation system. So here we can see that the AI system has struggled to produce the sort of typical features of a hand. It often adds extra fingers and thumbs, or there are some missing. Here also, this one's particularly strange in that it almost looks like the hand is a glove. So one way to understand things that are weird, uncanny, or even funny, because some people may laugh at images produced by AI, is that they're violating norms in some way. We have an expectation, an expected norm of images of hands is that they would normally, I mean, maybe not always, but normally have 4 fingers and a thumb. But AI doesn't give us that often. So it seems then that norm violations are occurring in weird AI images. However, we could question whether norm violation alone is enough to explain kind of what's distinctively weird about AI images. Perhaps there's something more that we can say about this. So from my work, what I think is that there's a key component of weird AI images, and that is that they involve failure. And in particular, they involve failure of a different kind than humans would make. So in what way do AI systems fail when they're making these strange images? Well, we can compare images made with AI to images made by humans to look at this closer. So here are some images generated by an AI system that was trained on photos of cats. This is from This Cat Does Not Exist. So these top 3 photos are pretty, or synthetic images, I should probably say, are quite successful. They look like cats. They have all the typical features of a cat. But we also get some images which are not quite right. So we've got 3 images at the bottom here that are sort of blobby, furry, amorphous shapes, a bit like a cat, but not quite. They're missing some sort of key features. When we compare this to so-called bad or weird human-made cat images, so these 2 are examples of medieval cats that went around the internet a couple of years ago, we can see that they're sort of bad in a different way. They still have sort of 2 eyes, 2 ears, a tail, the right number of limbs. So they're failed, but they're not the same as this kind of blob of fur that the AI gave us. And even in childhood, children start to draw animals with these key features of, say, a cat. So again, these child drawings, these were mine as a child, have 2 ears, an eye, a nose, etc. And this is because children and humans in general are relying on the building blocks of vision as well as their knowledge of what a cat has, which an AI system doesn't have at the moment. So there's no part of the system that kind of has that knowledge embedded in it, other than what it's been trained on in terms of images. So this was failure in a system that was particularly trained on generating images of cats, but we also see it in prompt-based systems as well. So for example, we see some will struggle with more unusual requests. Here's an example of some images that I generated of a cat on a beach. These 3 images are pretty fine. They look like cats on a beach, barring this strange thing in the corner here. But when I give a more complex prompt, such as a cat on a beach sipping a cocktail, the cat is wearing a sun hat and a bikini, we see that the system starts to struggle. So we have 3 images here of cats with cocktails, but they all have extra limbs. So they have the paws holding the cocktail and paws on the sand, kind of a set of paws in these images. Now, this is quite interesting. It's likely that it has to do with the sort of training images that was available to this system. But the key thing that I want to highlight here is that a human wouldn't fail in this way. A human would know that if I wanted to draw a cat holding a glass, I wouldn't also put 2 paws on the sand. So AI art then is experienced as weird. And this weirdness is to do with norms being violated. And I think this is due to failure, a particular kind of failure that humans don't do.